Yakuza 0 is a game filled with intense action, overwhelming emotion, and whatever this is. Better buckle up for this one. It's a wild ride.
Are you sure about that?
Oh. Ignore anything you might have seen back there. Welcome to the first episode of our challenge review series. In this series, we're going to be reviewing some games with an added little kick. If you've played any game through more than a couple times, you've probably gotten bored enough at some point to try something a little stupid. In all honesty, who doesn't love a good challenge? I mean, think about it. They push us to be better than we are, to move further and climb higher. Where would we be if nobody tried to beat Mario without jumping? If nobody beat Doom really, really fast? If nobody beat Dark Souls with a Guitar Hero controller? Oh, we'd still be in the Dark Ages, eating bugs and pooping in pots by the candlelight. So let's push ourselves towards that next great step. Continue humanity's great evolution by completing as many challenges as we can. And it all starts here, with Yakuza 0. Don't ask me why. I mean, it had to start somewhere. Our challenge is a simple one. But humor me for a second first. I think we can all agree that student debt really sucks, right? Oh, and don't worry, this isn't a sponsored segment. It relates to our challenge. Anyways, your student loan. You pay money you don't have to learn a bunch of skills to get a job to pay back money you owe for learning. Well, in Yakuza 0, cash is king. You can buy fancy gear, healing items, go bowling, just gamble it all away if you want. You can even pay money to learn a bunch of skills that, wait a minute. Pay money, learn skills, get a job? Yeah. Like I'm gonna fall for this scam again. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice? Fool me twice don't happen. We'll beat the game with that leveling up. And we'll do it on hard. There is an even harder difficulty called Legend, but you don't get that till you beat the game, so we'll settle for this. No level ups, on hard. Yakuza 0 is a prequel to the Yakuza series, taking place in the late 80s. If you've been curious about playing these games and have had no idea where to start, this is one of, if not the best game to start with. The game splits its story between two main characters. The first is longtime series stoic protagonist Kazuma Kiryu. The next is the crazy fan favorite Goto Majima, marking his first playable appearance in a mainline Yakuza game. Kiryu, after beating the snot out of some guy and having a good party, becomes the lead suspect in a murder. As this would bring dishonor to the Yakuza family Kiryu belongs to, he decides to leave the Yakuza in order to prove his innocence. This leads to him joining with Tachibana Real Estate, and having to track down the owner to a highly desirable piece of land known as the Empty Lot, which everyone seems to want to get their hands on. As he pries deeper into the mystery, Kiryu finds himself hunted down by the very Yakuza he used to work for. By the time Majima's story starts, he's already been kicked out of the Yakuza, and is trying to earn his way back in by managing a cabaret owned by a Yakuza bigwig. In reality, Majima is stuck in a city that acts as his prison. His every move is being watched. Every move. Until finally he's given a task. All he has to do is kill a specific target, and then he'll be back in the Yakuza. Why does everyone want the empty lot? Who exactly is this person Majima has to kill? The plot only thickens as you move further in the story. Kiryu's personality is pretty on brand from what we see in other games, stoic and strong-willed, letting only the occasional naivete slip through. But fans might notice that Majima is a little off. That's because, again, this game is a prequel, and almost acts as a little bit of an origin story for the fan favorite. We get to see our boy in a new light, as both of them grow into the legends they're destined to be. Actually, to be honest with you, Majima's character and story kinda steal the show here. Of course, if you are a newcomer to this series, it's nice to know that you don't already have to be invested in these characters to care about what they're going through in this game. Yakuza 0 does a great enough job developing each character and giving them time to grow. The story will alternate between characters every few chapters or so. And eventually, as the game progresses, each character's individual story begins to connect different plot points. It's honestly a very enjoyable story, filled with plenty of overly dramatic twists. Friends become enemies, enemies become allies, you hire a chicken to work at your real estate agency, you know, the works. And that actually brings me to this. The real quirkiness of the Yakuza series comes from the side stories. And you're really not getting the most out of Yakuza if you're not wasting a few hours meeting up with celebrities and beating up zombies. The main story is a crime drama filled with betrayal, intrigue, mystery, all that kind of stuff. But the side stories, that's where things start to get funky. You'll help a dominatrix become more, well, dominant. Help a kid become a man by buying him a lewd magazine. Recover a legendary, sexy videotape. A lot of these are oddly sexual. And even weirder than that, they usually always have a wholesome ending. It made me want to finish every side story I could so I could see its heartwarming conclusion. In any case, the main story is definitely worth seeing through to the end. If anything, just to see everyone rip their shirts off. Seriously, how do they do that? Yakuza 0 is like a modern take on the classic beat-em-up genre. The game gives players 2 city areas to explore. Kamurocho will be a familiar sight to Yakuza fans, as most games take place here. Sotenbodi's also appeared in a few Yakuza games, though it's a much smaller place by comparison. And though you can freely roam each area, don't expect the experience to feel as open as something like Grand Theft Auto. There's no cars to drive or buildings to climb, but that doesn't stop each city from feeling so alive, despite practically everyone there trying to kill you, or make you join a cult or something. Thankfully, if you need a good distraction, there's no shortage of fun activities in either city. Nice! Long story short, there's a lot of stuff to keep you distracted in this game. The real meat of the experience, though, is in the fighting. As you wander around town, you'll notice everyone is, not super nice to you. It's almost like everyone in this town has this weird hate boner for Kiryu or Majima, to the point where they'll just beat the crap out of anyone who vaguely resembles them. You know that moment in Pokemon when you stroll past the trainer and all of a sudden they want to battle you? This is that, but just a lot more violent. Must be something in the water. To defend yourself, each character gets access to 3 unique fighting styles that you can switch between at any time during combat. Each fighting style has its own strength and weakness. For example, Kiryu's rush style emphasizes evasion and speed. You can't pick up any weapons and you can't block, but you can dodge. On the other hand, his beast style is all about offense. You move super slow, but you can chuck things around like a beast, I guess. Majima's fighting styles are definitely more fun and unique though. Whether you prefer to snap necks, crack skulls, or just breakdance, Majima's got you covered. Each fighting style has its own skill tree, and unlocking these skills is going to cost you some money. Personally, I've got some better plans for my cash. Oh, you piece of shit. Well, if you choose to spend your money on skills, then you'll unlock new moves, abilities, and a few passive upgrades like health increases. It doesn't seem like a bad deal, but if you start paying for level ups, soon they'll make us pay for every punch or kick or just to pause the game. And I'm still salty about student loans. Anyways, as you get busy bashing people's brains in, you'll build up your heat bar. Heat is a special resource you can use to perform a heat action. There are these special high damage and cinematic moves. Just remember that no matter how brutal these moves can be, our protagonists have never killed anyone. Not even that guy. Fake injury. There's also some passive benefits you can get depending on how much heat you have. For example, Kiryu's rush style will gain increased attack speed with more heat. You can also equip weapons and gear to help you out during battle, and that's going to come in real handy if we're not going to buy any skills. Not to mention the tons of healing items we're going to end up burning through. There's also a secret 4th fighting style you can unlock by completing a rather lengthy side quest for each character. The fighting styles are based off of the iconic moves that Kiryu and Majima have been using in the other Yakuza games. They're pretty powerful and fun to use. The only problem is you can't switch to them like your normal fighting styles. You have to do it through the pause menu, and that kind of breaks the flow of combat a little bit. I'll be talking about unlocking these fighting styles when I get to talking about the challenge a little more, but for now just know that we'll be dealing with tons of cash. And I really do mean tons. To recap on the gameplay, switching fighting styles on the fly helps keep combat feeling fresh and engaging. There isn't a huge variety of enemy types, but the combat itself never really felt that dull. Might have been even cooler if I was unlocking new moves along the way, mainly because some of those other heat actions you unlock are damn spicy. But we're trying to make a point here. And if the story starts to drain on you, or combat is feeling dull for whatever reason, you can always just spend time at the arcade, or practice talking to cute girls on the phone. Maybe even just walk around collecting sexy trading cards. We haven't even scraped the surface of all the side activities. Kamurocho is modeled after Kabukicho. It's the real-life entertainment and red light district of Tokyo. And the second city, Sotenbori, is an entertainment district in Osaka, based on Osaka's real-life Dotonbori district. Now, I haven't been to either place, but both seem to capture the feel of their real-life counterparts. Of course, we're talking about the late 80s here, so everything's got a slightly retro vibe to it. From the golden hue of neon signs and people's retro suits and hairstyles, everything fits the late 80s aesthetic pretty well. And the soundtrack is fantastic. Boss music is on point. Regular battle music even changes depending on what fighting style you're in. And I can't even tell you how many hours I wasted in the karaoke and disco. Although, unlike the recent Yakuza 7 or Judgment, Yakuza 0 doesn't actually have any English voice acting. I know that won't be a problem for a lot of people, but I figured it was still worth mentioning. I should probably also talk about the cutscenes, which this game has basically 3, maybe 4 different styles of. Since this game has a pretty big focus on the story, you're going to be spending a lot of time watching cutscenes and going through dialogue. And it's in these cutscenes where the game loses a lot of its consistency. The important cutscenes, or the action sequences, got the big budget. They're voice acted, pre-rendered, and generally pretty fun to watch. And then you got this secondary style of cutscene. During the story missions, they're voice acted, and during the side story missions, they're not. They're made in-game, and character movement is kept pretty minimal. Whenever you get one of these cutscenes in the story, it's usually just to spit out a whole bunch of exposition towards you. They work fun enough and get the job done. Obviously, they're not as fun to watch as the pre-rendered cutscenes, but hey, it is what it is. But then there's the final style of cutscene, which seems a little jarring to me. They're like this slightly animated slideshow, which all have a filter over them. The general idea that this style of cutscene conveys to me is that these events happened in the past, like there's some kind of flashback. But they use these kinds of cutscenes not just for flashbacks, but for events that are currently happening in the present. It just kind of confuses me, I guess. This style of cutscene is the most infrequently used and the least consistent in my opinion. And to be honest, they feel kinda cheap. Still, Yakuza 0 is a very visually pleasing game with an amazing soundtrack.
Here comes a new challenger!
Okay, let's briefly recap the challenge. All we have to do is beat the game without leveling up. In order to level up, all you have to do is simply navigate to your skills menu and spend some money to unlock a skill. So yeah, just don't do that. Don't do that one thing that would make our lives so much easier. Because it's a very obvious scam. We'll also be playing the game on hard difficulty, as Legend isn't available until you beat the game. We're allowed to use weapons, gear, healing items, and anything else we need to in order to complete our challenge. And because unlocking the Legend styles doesn't require leveling up at all, we'll be unlocking those too. so it's actually a very easy challenge as long as you make sure to save often and keep a healthy stock of healing items. The game has no autosave, so keep that in mind. It's possible to get yourself stuck in a mission with no way to restock on healing items. If your last save happened to be 5 hours ago, then tough luck, I guess. I've actually played through the game before on PS4, with this most recent playthrough being on Steam. Although I can't really speak to the keyboard and mouse controls because real Yakuza use a gamepad. But my familiarity with this game is kind of what caused my first problem. I originally played the game on normal difficulty. During story missions, the game doesn't give you a way to back out if you need to restock on healing items. So to compensate, you can usually find some healing items as you make your way through the mission, or at least just before a boss fight. The game will not extend the same courtesy to anyone playing on hard though. I had no clue. I jumped into the first major story mission, expecting there to be some healing items just before the boss. Nope. Nothing. Thankfully, the first boss in the game isn't too difficult. You just gotta wait for the right openings to make your moves. If anything, I'm just glad I learned this lesson sooner, rather than when it would have been more painful. After that, the game was going pretty smooth. Even though Kiryu and Majima have 3 fighting styles each, I found myself sticking to one style for each of them. Beast for Kiryu and Slugger for Majima. At least until I unlocked their legend styles. I put in way too much work to unlock those styles to not use them. Up until then though, it was always Beast and Slugger. I used to think Beast was too slow and left you way too vulnerable. At the time, I only used it to smash people in the face with chairs. Or anything else around for that matter. But Beast style is so much more useful than for just beating people with chairs. The attacks are slow, but they swing wide, letting you deal with groups easy. And they hit hard, knocking people to the ground or breaking through guards, which a lot of bosses like to use. It's not invincible, but damn, it makes you feel powerful. And Majima's Slugger style knocks it out of the damn park. I don't know where he gets the bat, or where he puts it when he's done, but I'm glad he has it. You can even use this bat to block bladed attacks, which normally cut right through you. And there's a neat combo that basically lets you stun lock enemies, including bosses, so there's really no reason not to use it. As I mentioned earlier, I went out of my way to unlock the legend styles, mainly because I never unlocked them in my original playthrough, but also because I thought they might come in handy, since they are pretty powerful. To unlock these styles, you need to complete some lengthy side quests, which involve our characters getting real jobs. Kiryu breaks into real estate while Majima manages a cabaret club. You can make these businesses mad successful too, so I don't know why anyone will go back to the Yakuza after this. The real estate can be a bit boring. You mostly just buy other properties and wait for money to generate. And then you spend that money on upgrades or new properties and continue waiting for more money, so you can spend that money on upgrades or new properties. Occasionally, you mash a button, fight some people, find new managers to hire, but it's a pretty passive activity. It's best done while just doing other things. There's this clown guy. I think his name is Bob. He's always next to this shrine that sells you some unique upgradey type things. Oh, and don't worry, these upgrades don't cost you money. Instead, it'll cost you some CP, which you get from completing challenges. Talk about my kind of upgrade. So I purchased some upgrades for my real estate so they would generate money faster. And that was my second big mistake. One upgrade Kiryu can get from this guy just so happens to be his 5th and best fighting style.
For his neutral special, he wields a gun.
Seriously, I mentioned that Kiryu never killed anyone, right? Because I just want to make that clear. This may be more of a beat-em-up game, but that doesn't mean you can't use a few guns here and there. The worst is when the enemies start to use guns later on in the game, and how damn cheap it feels. Would have been a lot nicer if I had my own gun to play with, one where I wouldn't have to worry about the ammo. And I could have, if instead of wasting my CP on real estate stuff, I put it all towards the golden pistol, which has infinite ammo. Bullets. But none of that was really as bad as my next mistake, which was not preparing when I took on the Media King. He's an optional boss, but you have to beat him in order to progress in Kiryu's real estate quest, which again you need to do to unlock his legend style. But maybe if I got the golden pistol, I wouldn't have felt the need to unlock this style. I was probably gonna fight him anyways. It just would have been easier with a gun. I meant to do 2 things before fighting him. Stock up on healing items, and save. I did neither. The score was already 0-1 as I couldn't even beat this guy in a disco contest. And believe me, I tried. I danced my little heart out. But I figured that was because we were fighting on his home turf, and if things came down to a real fight, I'd have the advantage. I was wrong about that too. Very, very wrong. Okay, so, first off, this douche comes in with blue health, thinking he's better than everyone, and then he brings his whole damn gang into the fight with him, and trust me, he doesn't need the help. Maybe the gun wouldn't have been that useful. I tried a lot of things, but I was always outnumbered, and had only a couple healing items to my name. Thankfully, I already had everything I needed to succeed. You remember our good friend Bob? Bob was oh so kind enough to give me a whole arsenal of weapons. A rather unconventional arsenal, but an effective one. Surprisingly, fish cannons, big fans, and tasers weren't quite enough to cut it. My last save was approximately 4 hours ago, and while 4 hours isn't exactly the most time to lose, I was stubborn. I did not want to go back. And it's worth noting again, for the purposes of this review, that the game has no autosave. So save your game often if you want to avoid situations like this. But as I've alluded to, not all hope was lost yet. I had this accessory, the magnetic necklace, that I got from doing a side quest earlier. It lets you regenerate health when you stay still during combat, and it just so happened to supplement my need of healing items. It does feel kind of cheap to use, but for this guy, I made an exception. Dealing with the rest of Kiryu's real estate was pretty easy. Next, Majima's Cabaret Club. And for that, I ran into an entirely different problem. Making sure nobody walked in on me playing the game. I actually really enjoyed the Cabaret Club. Like, a lot. But I mean, who wouldn't? You get to give your girls cute makeovers, but then you get to sit back and watch as they show a lack of the most basic communication skills. Nice try, sweetie. Still, it's a fun management minigame, and it's way more fun than just running around in circles and pushing a button. After you beat these quests, you finally earn the legend style for each character. Majima decides a bat isn't gonna cut it, so he whips out a dagger and his trademark sadistic smile, while Kiryu just stands straighter and punches harder. Well, to be fair, he also gets access to his trademark move. And this gives us access to the best cheese strat in the game, where we just equip an accessory that increases our heat when we're low on health, and then we play the waiting game. I love it. With plenty of side content in Yakuza 0, the game can take hours for you to complete. If you're looking for just a casual playthrough, then it's approximately around 20 hours. My recent challenge run here was 54 hours and 9 minutes. But I did take time to see the sights, go bowling, race slot cars, that sort of thing. And despite all that, there was still plenty in the game that I didn't even touch yet. The total amount of money I earned was about 45,784,134,064 yen, which is apparently worth about 15 3 billion yen Tokyo radio towers. Or maybe like 15 3 billion yen tacos. I mean, what kind of metric is this? Apparently the Tokyo Tower cost about 2.8 billion to make back in 1958, so that's probably what they're talking about. Now that much yen today is worth about 53,970,741,607.33 yen. And because many people probably don't know the value of yen, I converted that to 467,074,941 freedom bucks and 29 freedom cents. Even so, we managed to beat the game without spending a single bit of that on improving our skills. Proving that it's not what you know, it's what did we learn? It's not what you know, it's how many drugs you buy. Alright, time for what everyone's been waiting for. Let's take a look at the leaderboard. Thinking about Yakuza 0? I really enjoyed the game. It's a perfect entry point for anyone looking to get into the series. But beyond that, I just really had a fun time. I think the game is easily worth second spot on the leaderboard here, earning it the rating of excellent. And I think it earns this rating despite its flaws. The story can take a little while to get started, and some cutscenes are just big exposition dumps. But despite that, I was still really engaged with the story and characters. Combat was also really solid. I enjoyed being able to switch styles on the go. Even if some styles feel objectively better than others, it's still nice to have the option to switch between them when I need. Things only felt annoyingly difficult whenever I was up against a large group of enemies, or when they started giving the enemies bullets and blades. The game really shines when it comes to its side content. There's a staggering amount of things to see and do, so sit back and take your time with this one. Enjoy the music. It's worth it. Oh, and if you're thinking of taking on this challenge, I couldn't really recommend it. The challenge itself doesn't really add anything too unique to a typical Yakuza playthrough. It just restricts the moves and abilities you can use. It's not even that difficult, just as long as you remember to save and always keep a good stock of healing items. But this also means that the challenge wasn't hard enough for me to feel accomplished with my work after overcoming it. But of course there is always legend difficulty. Maybe we save that for some other time. I'd like to try more fun challenges for future content. Well, we did it. I may have gotten a little carried away myself, but we took our nice little vacation and proved that student loans are nothing more than a big scam. In fact, anyone who pays for education is a sucker. All you really need to do is lie about the things that you've learned and pretend you know how to do them. It's what everyone else does. Just make sure you stock up on healing items before you do anything crazy. It's time to head on to newer, greater challenges. And if you want to see those challenges, make sure to stick around for more. We'll have tons of them coming out. And if you enjoyed this video, thanks. I appreciate you and everything you do. Ciao.